The little, the seemingly insignificant, the few, the powerless, those who don't seem to count, the perpetual underdogs, those whose lives don't make waves, the widows, the orphans, the poor, the lowly. These are those who can make a difference, those whose presence and persistence, I should say, can mean life, fullness of life, both for themselves and others, or the utter lack of it for everyone. I refer to the power of one. I speak of the riches behind the widow's mite, the force of puny David's stone that spelled defeat of the mighty Goliath. I point to the authority of the 12, the Lord's few good men whose conviction and faith remain in force over the past 2,000 plus years. The faith that we celebrate today is a testimony of the power of these few good men and women whose lives and deaths spelled life for all of us women and men of goodwill. Our faith, which we share with all brothers and sisters in the whole Christian world, deserves this weekly, daily for some, gathering of prayer, praise, worship, and thanksgiving. As we do Eucharist, though, we are all aware that the world we live in is in a situation that, to be honest, leads us to ask this burning question: should not the judge of the world act justly? When we see what we are capable of doing, when we behold what we all are guilty of, when we are face to face with the reality of human depravity and sinfulness, when we acknowledge the fact that 2,000 years after the coming of the Promised One, the world is nowhere near being fully and definitively redeemed, when we cannot but stand as helpless witnesses to the ravages of war, terrorism, corruption, and the all-pervading signs of a culture of death in our midst, we are led to ask, should not the judge of the world act justly? Should God not finally intervene in this messy world that everywhere seems to reek of personal, social, and structural evil? Today stands out as a day of persistence. On the one hand, we see Abraham's consistent and constant pleadings before the Lord for the sake of a few good people in the city of Sodom and Gomorrah. On the other hand, we see also God's own brand of persistence in His answer that was as firm as it was gentle. I will spare the whole place for their sake. I will not destroy it if I find 45 there. I will not destroy it for the sake of the 20. For the sake of those 10, I will not destroy it. Abraham's perseverance in prayer is matched by God's infinite justice. In a society and culture that prizes a kind of corporate personality and where social responsibility is highly valued, the presence of a few good people, along with the persistent and faith-filled intercessory prayer of one on behalf of the whole, occasions God's justice that then overflows in mercy. I will not destroy it, says the Lord of mercy and justice. This is definitely good news for us all. At a time when hope grows gray hairs and patience wears thin, when more bad than good news fills our TV screens and daily papers, when all we see seems to be the triumph of not a few good people, but a whole lot of evildoers, when all I endeavor in disappointment end, and faith becomes mere wishful thinking, the Church invites us to pray along with Abraham and the psalmist, Lord, on the day I called for help, you answered me. Today is a day of persistent prayer. Today is a day when the light of faith ought to overcome the darkness of hopelessness and cynicism. And the good news is, the Lord Himself gives us the model of persistent prayer, the Our Father. Persistence is the character of this prayer. Perseverance is etched in the very language of this prayer that asks not for food for tomorrow and for the distant future, but only for today, and only for what is strictly necessary to maintain oneself in being. Today's good news includes a blanket authority for us to pray without ceasing. Today's good news gives us the right to pelt God with prayers, for we have received a spirit of adoption through which we cry, Abba, Father. Today's good news offers us the privilege of drawing near to God, for we were buried with Christ in baptism, in which we were also raised with him through faith in the power of God, who raised him from the dead. Today's celebration seals our right to give thanks with all our heart, because of his kindness and his truth. For on the day we called for help, God answered us. There are reasons for us to approach this loving, merciful, and just God. There are enough reasons to continue on believing, to go on hoping, even against hope, even if, alas, there are so few good people left on this earth. A few good people. These are the men and women who continue to show that God is alive and well and working in our midst. These are the men and women who live unheralded lives of indomitable heroism and quiet faith. These are the men and women who pray fervently and faithfully behind closed doors, before flickering candles in dark and dingy churches. These are the men and women whose earthly lives may be surrounded by every imaginable type of darkness, the darkness of personal suffering, of poverty, powerlessness, and pain, but whose hearts are aglow with the resplendent assurance that can only come from a God who declares, I will not destroy it. A few good people, a few good men and women, a few persistent souls before a God of permanent love, justice, and overflowing mercy. A few good people is all we need. For their sake, for the sake of those we seek, for the sake of those who knock, and for the sake of those who ask, God and his love will remain steadfast forever. And our question today is, can we be counted along with these few good people? Thank you, and God bless you.